fall has arrived in the southern Appalachian Mountains. We've had a couple of mornings in the low 50s, we've had one or two in the high 40s, and there's pumpkins laying orange in the gardens. This time of the year, my mind goes to all those wonderful things that I love about fall of the year. I think of the leaves as I walk down at Granny's rustling around my feet. I think of there's a maple tree at Granny's where you park. When you park there and you get out to go in the house, those beautiful red maple leaves that fall just make a beautiful red carpet, and I always notice it every year. I think about the clang of the wood stove door. I'll begin to hear that as we start to build fires. I think of the crisp blue skies in fall. It's just such a beautiful color. Of course, all the colored leaves. It's amazing when you drive through the mountains this time of the year to see all the various colors, the way the leaves have put on their fall garments. Of course, I think about sweaters and boots and all the cozy things you get to wear in the fall and the winter. I think about the sparkle of frost down through the holler. And I also think about the foods that I love to eat this time of the year. My mind goes to apples. This is apple season. It's black walnut season when people begin to gather their black walnuts and the apple harvest is coming in. I think about all those foods that traditionally make me think of fall of the year and the ones that I love to cook for my family. And today I'm going to show you one of those recipes, which is apple bread. The recipe I'm going to share with you today comes from the cookbook by Joseph E. Dabney. It's called Smokehouse Ham, Spoon Bread, and Scuppernong Wine. It's a wonderful cookbook. All through it he shares little excerpts from different books and publications, quotes from people, all talking about the food, about the recipe. So it's got a ton of information besides the wonderful recipes. So the one I was going to read to you is really short, just comes just before the apple bread recipe. So it says, when a mountaineer's voice announcing apples, apples sounded on the crisp November air, the Obed and Riley children always left their places. They ran up the hill to wait for the apple man. His wagon, decorated with shiny red apples on the ends of sticks, was to their childish fancy the result of some good fairy's magic wand. The children didn't know that those big red apples were covering up jugs of blockade liquor. And that's from the novel A Little Leaven by Frances Adair. I've never read that book, but now that makes me want to. So I'm going to go over the ingredients that you need for the bread, but I will put them in the description below so you don't need to worry about writing them down. And the name of this specific apple bread recipe, there's lots of different ones out there, but this is Annie's apple bread. So it takes 2 beaten eggs, 2/3 cup sugar, 1/2 cup butter, 1 tablespoon lemon juice, 1/2 teaspoon salt, 2 1/8 cups of all-purpose flour, and an 1/8 is actually half of a 1/4, so that's a little tip there for you. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 2 cups of chopped apples, and 1 cup of chopped black walnuts. That's why I really enjoy this recipe, is because it's got those fall apples, but it's also got black walnuts. So I've got a video about black walnuts, I can link to that, but if you've never had black walnuts, they have a totally different, a more distinct taste, stronger, richer taste than regular English walnuts. It's a totally different nut, but they're really good. And so now I'm going to show you how to make the bread. Okay, the first step is we're going to cream the sugar, the butter, the eggs, and the lemon juice. So I've already got the butter in there. Add the rest of the stuff. Oops. So now that we've got that creamed, we're just going to stir in the rest of the ingredients. So this whips up pretty fast. So here's we're going to put our flour and our baking soda and salt in there first. Actually, it's baking powder, not baking soda. So as you're stirring, it's a really, really stiff dough, almost like you were making a crust, like a pie crust or something. But once you put the apples in, and they will moisten it up. So that's what we're going to do next, is put the apples in. And 2 cups of apples is about 2 pretty good size apples. So once we've got the apples in, it's still a very thick dough. We're going to add the black walnuts and stir them in. So now that I've got it stirred up, and let me tell you, it's a workout to get all that stuff stirred in there, we're going to put it in a loaf pan and bake it. The recipe says to grease and flour the loaf pan. I like to use parchment paper because I'm lazy, and that way I can just lift it out. So now we're going to scoop the dough out to put in there. Once you get it in there, you can kind of pat it down into the corners so that it'll cook evenly. I lost an apple over there. We don't want to lose my apples. Now we're going to put it in the oven for about 45 minutes or till done. So since your oven may be different than mine, just keep an eye on it the first time you make it so you make sure you don't over bake it. So the bread's done, and I've had it out of the oven cooling for about 10 minutes. So now we're going to cut a little piece here and see how it tastes. So you can see the apples and the black walnuts. It's really just a lovely bread for fall. Those tastes of fall, the black walnuts and the apples. Very good. It's not overly sweet since it didn't have that much sugar in it. Of course, the apples add a sweetness to it, but it's just really a great bread for fall of the year. It's really good after it cools down in the next day or two, and you slice it and toast it and put some cream cheese on it for breakfast. Especially good that way, but it's really good just like this too. I hope you enjoyed seeing how to make this apple bread with those lovely black walnuts in it, a real taste of fall. I hope you'll drop back by often and help me celebrate Appalachia, which includes Appalachian foodways like apples and black walnuts.